China Global Television Network.
Continuing for weeks, politically charged banners and posters calling for independence at university campuses in Hong Kong were met with a backlash. What does it mean for Hong Kong society? Just 1 month earlier, 3 Occupy Central protest student leaders were sentenced to prison for 6 to 8 months. What are the implications? Is this an alarm for Hong Kong's education system? 10 local university presidents issued a joint statement saying they do not support independence and condemning the abuse of free speech. What will the Hong Kong SAR government do?
We don't want to see people use this as a cover to preach independence. That's unacceptable and intolerable.
20 years after its return to the mainland, what are the opportunities and challenges facing Hong Kong society? What should be done to facilitate its further development under the one country, two systems policy?
A recent confrontation between student union members and the mainland students at the Chinese University of Hong Kong about posters advocating Hong Kong independence has generated a lot of front-page stories and triggered a huge debate. Some scholars and lawmakers say it is time to speed up implementation of Article 23 of the Hong Kong Basic Law, which prohibits any act of treason, secession, sedition, or subversion against the central government here in Beijing. What is happening in Hong Kong society today, and how is the one country, two system principle to be applied? To discuss the many issues related to Hong Kong's rule of law and its future, I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by Su Ming-zhong, Professor of International Law at the China Foreign Affairs University, and Xu Qingduo, Current Affairs Commentator from China Radio International. We shall also talk with Richard W. Hu, Professor of Political Science at the University of Hong Kong via satellite. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui. Gentlemen, what do you make of the latest escalation of tensions between mainland students and the local student union leaders over the issue of Hong Kong's independence? I mean, this issue was absolutely impossible, even during the period of the Occupy Central movement a couple of years back. Why should this issue of Hong Kong independence emerge overnight on the campus?
Well, it's not necessarily overnight. I think it has been there, you know, like, let's make it clear. It's only absolutely a small number of people who are advocating for Hong Kong independence. There are some people, probably they are not familiar with the mainland situation. They are not even probably, they don't like the mainland. I think there are people, but that's natural, let's say, because of misunderstanding, lack of understanding, that's natural. I think it goes back a little bit like to 2015, or even earlier, that there's a political reform about election, about electing the chief executive of Hong Kong SAR.
The issue of universal
right.
suffrage.
Yeah, it failed. And because of the opposition from the opposition party in the legislature, obviously some people feel frustrated, you know, like what is the way forward for political reform? And also plus, the Hong Kong, I think there's also economic problem. You know, Hong Kong is suffering from this widest gap between rich and poor. Young people, college graduates, sometimes graduation means unemployment. And if you find a job to have a, you know, a good living standard, it's difficult. If you look at some of the flat, you know, for the middle class or lower middle class people, you would see like a 20 or 30 square meters, you live like 3-4 people. It's so difficult, I mean, for people. So I think all of these, and also the loss of privilege, say, you know, Hong Kong used to be the only Chinese city that can claim to be international, speaking English, international perspective, prospect. But nowadays, you know, it faces a serious competition from Shanghai and also from the students from the mainland. mainland.
No, they face the immediate competition from Shenzhen, which has surpassed Hong Kong's economy in size and
exactly.
in terms of quality.
If you look at the clash practice, cashless society, we say in the mobile payment in China, in the mainland, this is the largest, the quickest. Hong Kong is being left behind, far away. There's an article in the South China Morning Post asking the question: Hong Kong is so close to the mainland, why Hong Kong is being left out?
Well, that's a very expensive question to be answered by Professor Richard Hu from Hong Kong. He's standing by in Hong Kong. Hello, Professor Hu.
Hello.
What do you think?
Ray.
What do you think of the driving force behind the campaign of some of the radical student leaders calling for independence of Hong Kong?
I think the driving force could be a complicated one. And I agree with the previous speakers, this is not something overnight erupted. And this is actually something more deeply rooted in the society, especially among the young people, young generation. Now on campus, there's a very activist group on campus that advocate this course of Hong Kong independence. So this incident start from the beginning of the semesters. The pro-independence activists, they put up the banners and also posters on the so-called democracy wall, and then that caused the disputes. So I agree with the earlier speaker that there's a deep-rooted social courses, economic courses. The Hong Kong students facing the serious challenge from the mainland students, and they feel not so advantageous in the future competition in the job market, and also they do not see their future.
Excuse me, Professor Hu, are you suggesting clearly that some of the student leaders who turn out to post the posters are the losers in the examination and in the competition academically against the mainland students on the campus?
I wouldn't term that they are losers in terms of examination or academic career. I just want to say they do represent some kind of sentiment among a small number of students. They are very anti-mainland, they are very anti-establishment, and they represent some kind of a populist sentiment in the society. And so that's why they do these things. I think not majority of students on campus, of course not majority of society support their course.
Here is an assumption, if not a fear, in the mainland, Professor Hu, that should any special measures, very tough measures, be taken by the ICAR government, they will only be the undoing and could prove counterproductive in arousing more resentment and even anger from the radical groups on the campus. What do you think of such concerns?
I think the ACR government have already made very clear stance. They oppose any Hong Kong independent advocacy on campus. And the Chief Secretary a few days ago made a very clear statement. This morning, our Chief Executive also made the similar statement. And 2 days ago, the university presidents, 10 of them, issued a joint statement against the Hong Kong independent course, and also warned the students that freedom of expression comes with some kind of responsibilities. So I think this is a very serious response to this kind of students' radical statement on campus.
Yes, indeed, Hong Kong is known for rule of law. Now, Professor Su, you have been an expert, Professor Su from the China Foreign Affairs University here in the Beijing studio. My question for you is, as an expert of legal studies, what do you make of the implications of rule of law in seriously combating and pushing back the appeal for independence?
Hong Kong is, is a society of rule of law, right? But so-called independence of Hong Kong cannot be supported by international law and the Chinese internal as well.
What does the international law say?
International law, independence, that means part of peoples secede from existing state, right? Because Hong Kong is a part of China. Part of the students, a few students, advocate advanced independence, so-called independence. That means they want to secede from motherland. The secession is one of the important topics in international law. International law does not support secession of part of peoples from existing state because this may violate the principle of territorial integrity. Territorial integrity is one of the fundamental principles established by both conventional international law and customary international as well. In respect of conventional international law, UN Charter, now UN Charter is a treaty, it's a convention. UN Charter, in its Article 2, Paragraph 4, provides that members of UN shall refrain in their relations from use of threats or force against territorial integrity or political independence of other states. So in respect to customary international law, General Assembly, UN General Assembly Resolution 26225, 1977, which concerns declaration of a friendship and cooperation among states in accord with the UN Charter, which provides that actually self-determination is a principle, but self-determination cannot be self-determination. It's a strict scope of application. That is to say, self-determination can be applied in two circumstances. Firstly, in the no self-governing territories, and secondly, to the peoples living under the foreign or alien dominations, exploitation, right? Although the self-determination is a principle of international law, this cannot be interpreted as authorization or encouraging any action to dismember of the existing state. That is a safeguard clause established in the General Assembly Resolution 2625. This Resolution 2625 reflects customary international law, right? That's to say, secession cannot be supported by international law, whether conventional international law or customary international law.
In his policy speech commemorating the 20th anniversary of Hong Kong's return, President Xi Jinping drew a red line for the pro-secession activists in Hong Kong, citing the following factors to prevent the independence attempt. For example, subversion, sedition, infiltration, sabotaging. Many other reasons were cited by President Xi Jinping to talk tough about the trend towards secession. Now, it is one thing to voice one's appeal for independence. It is quite another for an entity such as the SAR government in Hong Kong to launch or stage a crackdown. So what does the international law say about the tough measures to be taken by the authorities that enjoy thorough and comprehensive sovereignty?
In my hands, this is a modern introduction to international law, right?
A modern introduction to international law. What does the book say?
Professor Coase is a famous professor, right? In his book, A Modern Introduction to International Law, he said that there's no rule of. Would you please read this paragraph?
Thank you for authorizing me to read this paragraph. It's paragraph 3 of chapter 5. It says, there is no rule of international law which forbids secession from an existing state, nor is there any rule which forbids the mother state to crush the secessionary movement if it can.
Yeah. This is a position taken by international law. By international secession, that is to say, I would conclude that actually international secession cannot be supported by international law. On the other hand, it cannot be supported by internal law. Chinese, you know, we have a constitution, right? Article 52 and 54 provide that citizens of China.
You mean Constitution of the People's Republic
But the
of
People's
China?
Republic of China.
What does Article 52 say?
Yeah, 52 provide that citizens of China has a duty to safeguard unification of China, right? Of the state, of country.
So we will do whatever we can to prevent the independence of Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong.
Yeah, Taiwan, you know, we have anti-secession law adopted in anti-secession law. 2005.
It was approved by the NPC during the government of President Hu Jintao.
Macau, you know, on 25 February 2009, Macau Executive Council adopted maintain national security law in order to implement the Article 23 of Macau Basic Law, right? Basic Law. That is to say, Macau, in Macau, the national security can be guaranteed in both, firstly, by this Article 23, Article 23 of Basic Law, and also implement. This actually maintain national security law is implementing methods, right, of the Article 23. This is one hand. On the other hand, you know, in Hong Kong, in both Hong Kong and Macau, we stationed the Chinese liberal army, right? Liberal army.
People's Liberation Army.
Yeah, People's Liberation Army. You know, we have a garrison law in Hong Kong and Macau. In Macau. The first article of this garrison law said that the duties of the army to safeguard the unification, the territorial integrity, the national security. This actually is guaranteed against the secession.
Mr. Matthew, Chief of Staff of the Hong Kong SCR government, the #2 guy of importance in the SCR government, said loud and clear in the latest official statement, there's no room for discussion about the independence of Taiwan, and that means it's non-negotiable. What about Article 23? I mean, during the government of Teng Ji-hua, the first Hong Kong SCR chief executive, he called for the implementation of Article 3, and yet thousands of locals turned out in protest against the discussion about how to execute Article 23. Why did that happen?
Well, I think at that time, you know, people didn't see like Hong Kong independence as any or will be and advocated by anyone in Hong Kong. So there's I think like plus the lack of understanding of you know, let's say the basic law, the mainland, the central government. So there's understandably there's you know, strong opposition to the implementation, because you know, like even your action is against the constitution, basic you know, mini constitution, basic law of Hong Kong, like this calling for independence. But you cannot put them. It's very hard to put them like accountable, because there's a lack of implementation. That is like an implementation law, that's Article 23. If you don't pass it, if there's no approval of the Article 23, almost impossible